All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Behind the Lava Lava, where us three knuckleheads, we bring you a little bit of our theapocalness, if so to speak, to different subjects that about the Pacific, the veterans' life, a little bit of history of where we come from. I'm Mua. We got Michael Tan over here and Spence with me. I'm gonna throw over to Spence to talk about an icebreaker question, lighten up the mood here before we get into the heavy subject. Go ahead, Spence.
When we get into that heavy lifting, but actually, so, this is one of those, last year everyone was talking about, women bumping into random men or bears or whatever. I think this is kind of the 2025 version of that. We're kind of late coming to it, but it's like, it is an interesting question. The question was, could 100 men beat one silverback gorilla? Because these things are strong, like they're like enormous, they're aggressive, and I think the qualifier for this one is it's 100 random guys. You're not assembling your team, you're not assembling the Avengers here. I think that's the case. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw it out to you guys. What do you think? Could 100 men beat in a fight one silverback gorilla?
100 random dudes, trying to engage a silver white gorilla, man, we will get demolished. There's no question, man. We are out of our league, man. Like one gorilla is like, the strength of almost 1,000 men. Just put it like that. So, if he already has that 1,000 strength right there, I don't know what, 100 little twinkle toes from off the street is going to do. Unless we got one smart dude and, that's going to, like a Iron Man type dude that's really smart, like a Stark, probably, and probably will have an edge. But other than that, not only will we get demolished, he'll eat us to the bones, man. Clean off the bones and everything, man. No blood, nothing. Just the bones left over for his other 100 gorillas that's in the back, waiting to demolish. So that's my answer, man. It's just a waste of time.
Do you think Do you think there's a stamina factor in here, though? Silverback gorillas. It's not like they're marathon sprinters. You think after he's tore the first 30 guys in half, he's probably getting tired. Do you think that there's a possibility that 70 more could dogpile him and start doing something, or what do you think? Or is the silverback just going to effortlessly
he'll just huff and puff, stand there and like rest his right arm while he takes care of the other 30 with his left arm? That's my theory, man. And then after he gets done with that left arm, he rests that, and then the other arm is coming up. And then not even that, he could even just like him turning around will hurt one guy. Just turning around, just to his little sudden movements. I've seen a gorilla before, man. There's a reason why they're in cages, and there's a reason why they're in the wild. So that's man. It's a done deal. We're nowhere in that league. It's just we might as well just throw the white flag as soon as we see that guy walking towards us. We're done. No way in hell.
What do you think, Michael?
Well, since one of the things is that it's 100 random men, I'm more leaning towards the gorilla, but at the same time, you mentioned the stamina factor. I think 100 men can take them, but the gorilla will at least take like 70, 80 of those men before the gorilla falls, because, unless he has like an endless supply of Tesla batteries hooked up to him, that gorilla can go on and on like the Energizer Bunny. But yeah, for sure, I think the 100 men would. Well, it wouldn't be 100 men by then. It'll probably be the last 5. But here's the thing. I've been thinking very hard on this question ever since it came out, and when I've been watching all these responses, and I'm saying, man, these human beings, man, they're all bullies. Why are they gonna gang up on one gorilla? Yeah, that's a very unfair fight, but. Man, Yeah, I think the 100 men would win, but I do feel sorry for the gorilla.
So, so Ati, you said the gorilla. Michael, you say the 100 dudes. I kind of agree with Ati. I still think the gorilla just slaughters us, but only because it's 100 random dudes from the general population. Because I heard some people online, they were like, well, guys will get together, something primal will wake up in us and we'll rally and all this stuff. I'm like, not if it's Joe Schmo walking around Portland, Oregon with his like man bun, not his poly man bun, but his Palangi man bun and his coffee. Like, no, this dude's he'll be panicking and like cowering in a corner here. No offense to, Portland and Seattle and all that. It's like, I'm just thinking out the top of my head. I'm like, bro, not modern humans. They're very, very, very fragile. Like you see guys can't make it through basic training without panicking. And this is a controlled environment. When they see their friend get ripped in half by a gorilla, there's nothing. But I did see it was funny. It's like somebody posted like some stern looking like ancient man. And he's like, here, this is your forefather looking down, your forefathers who hunted mammoths looking down on you, deciding if you can beat a gorilla. It's like, look, the ancestors had tools. We made spears. We made tools. We're talking about a melee here. I'm just saying, like, they weren't meleeing these mammoths. So, I don't know. I think it's the gorilla, but who knows? Now, let me change the question up a bit.
Well, real quick.
What's up?
Can you imagine standing in front of a gorilla and it just roars, right? So the roar would be its battle cry that's very deafening, and just looking at it is very scary. I think about 80% of those men would be fleeing. So
Especially if the gorilla's going, oh.
Gorilla used roar. It was very effective.
Dude, that's done, man.
and it'll just fling its doo-doo at you. So it'll just win right there.
See, it's got ranged attacks too. It's got ranged attacks. But so no, all right. So let me switch it up real quick. 100. So now instead of 100 random men, 100 random Samoan men. Does that change it at all? 100 random Samoan men.
I think the biggest factor in this is speed and agility, right? Because for most Samoans, we're like the gorilla, right? We're short and powerful within the first minute or two, and then you're just dead. You can't do much because you're tired. You're huffing and puffing. So the key factor for the other men to win is speed, agility, and it just depends on their fitness.
So now the stamina factor goes against both sides.
Man, 100 Samoan, man, that'll be kind of out. I will say this. The gorilla still has an edge. Sorry to say, man, the gorilla still has an edge. And the reason why I say so, maybe 100 Samoan dudes from like maybe 60 years ago, maybe a slight advantage. Us, I mean, hey, I don't want to say this, but I have to say this. I mean, did anybody look at the recent most top 10 fattest countries in the world? Okay, if you know what I'm talking about, you'll know the reason being of my answer that I'm saying. So there's got to be a little bit of health factors involved right there. There's a little bit, for me, man, I could probably go maybe like 5 minutes, giving my full energy and I'm done, So I could imagine.
So basically, you just have to hold out until the gorilla figures it out.
All he has to do is I'm in the back.
Gorilla. All he has to do is flick you in the gout, and then we're done.
But I'll be in the back if he wants to flick me, though.
But the real question is what's with all Samoans versus gorilla? The real question is what's with this Samoan on Samoan violence, huh? No, I'm just kidding. That just reminded me of this stupid joke that I was told when I was a teenager. It's like, what's the difference between a Samoan and a gorilla? The gorilla waits until the banana is ripe before he eats it. All right. So,
Which is funny.
any, anybody want to add anything on that question or what?
Yeah, I misunderstood the question. I thought you said 100 Samoans versus 100 regular men from other countries, but
No, and I would take that, but no, I guess a gorilla.
yeah, I think the gorilla would still be the top winner.
Hey, what? Why are we putting our own folks down, man? I'm gonna switch it up. I'm gonna say 100 Samoan men are gonna kill it, man.
There we go.
Hey, we got
Represent,
a head,
represent. There we go.
Hey, we still got that hidden, bloodline in us, man. That warrior. Once I would say we all have it. Once we unlock it in a fight,
Well,
it
here's
goes down.
another
Okay.
factor that's gonna wipe out maybe 50 or 40% of Samoans is that gout. So if they be having gout, they won't be able to fight. So
Bro, you
I
had
feel
to
sorry
go
for
there. Huh?
them.
You had to go.
Man. So now, if we got to selectively choose, like is it like we're picking our best, like our Samoans, either Samoans that are like beefing up the rugby teams and football teams around the world. We're talking. We got The Rock and Mark Hunt and all them. I'm like, okay, no, I think 100 Samoans could murk that gorilla. But if we're talking about randos, yeah,
I
I
agree.
think
I
I still agree. I still
100%
pick the
agree,
gorilla.
Spence. 100% agree.
But then we just show up and give them a cup of ava, and then the gorilla chills out, and then we all Siva together.
All right. Hey, thank you, Spence, for hitting us with that icebreaker. I'm going to roll it down to Mike. Hey, hit us with the topics, and we'll roll right into it.
Yeah. So one of the questions we wanted to address today was, what if the concept of aiga, which means family in Samoan, was reimagined as a global model for social welfare? So, given the strong familial bonds in Samoan culture, what if the concept of aiga, where family takes care of each other, became the foundation for social welfare programs around the world? What do you guys think? So, this would involve healthcare, education, government policy, so anything.
All right. So personally, I'm not a big fan of that because and again, we talked about this before. I'm like Mr. Conservative when it comes to my politics and economics and stuff, but this is kind of the flip side of that. I love Samoa, the concept of Ainga, but there's a quote that I really like by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. He said, "I am at the Fed level a libertarian, at the state level a Republican, at the local level a Democrat, and at the family and friends level a socialist." And that's how I would have. So that's why the concept of Ainga, Fa Samoa, I think it's very good when it's families taking care of families. But we do see this a lot. Like when we had our guests before talking about our finances and getting things straight, they talked about how it's a difficult thing that a lot of Samoan clients of theirs deal with is doing things like pay your life insurance. Because if you pay your life insurance, you have a policy in place. When you pass away, you don't have to send out the beacon to all your family all over the world. Hey, your family sends in 500. Your family sends 500. Your family sends 500. You don't have to do that if you have just picked up a life insurance policy and paid into it. And so there's, even on the family level, while it's a noble pursuit, sometimes it's one that just leaves us all impoverished because we could be coordinating our financial efforts. I don't know, like probably in more effective ways. But I think on the family level, it is an effective thing. More, it was like, hey, we have a crisis that we've got to solve. Let's bond together, get through it, and then hopefully put in store for the next crisis, so that we're not just left like gathering funds when we're in a hard predicament. I think applying that to a global level could be kind of a devastating thing. Like I don't know if we could possibly run an effective healthcare system or sponsor things like social networks effectively with hey, everybody just pool in and stuff. We try that, like we kind of do that. Like we have Keynesian economics here in the United States, so we do have like a mixed model system. It's not all free market capitalism, and even that is not the most effective. And so I think basically the Fa Samoa Ainga, like it would basically be socialist economics, or and I don't think that's a good thing.
I think where it might be effective or it might potentially help out is the homelessness around the country, right? So that concept of ainga means taking care of our family and those around us. Americans, Samoa specifically, there isn't that many people who are homeless, but the reason why they are homeless, or they seem homeless, they do have a home to return to, but it's because of mental illness that they don't return to their families or their homes. So I think that's an area that might improve if the concept of ainga becomes a global thing. Because I think overall Samoans are very good in charity work. The main problem is all the gossiping and all the putting down of each other. But what I've noticed here in the States is, everyone's forming their own cliques, but ultimately everyone wants to help out. Everyone wants to volunteer. Everyone wants to be in service of others. So in some way, Samoans are very charitable. So I think that's where, the target area that may improve is the homelessness.
So I both kind of agree with you guys in that sense because, if we bring it down to the root explanation of Ainga and Fasamoa, the key word there is alofa, and alofa means love. And the reason why it exists primarily in Samoa is because, like what Spencer was alluding to, is that at the simplest level, the family complex level, that's where we have, everything is pretty much simple in that level, in that micro level. So when we try to bring it up to the macro level, that's when things get very hard. And where things get very hard is because when money is involved, because even at that micro level, there's certain family members that are having issues at that micro level, relating to money. So in the world, money is pretty much in all its form is the way things are, get done, and somebody has to pay for something. If we have a group of, a group, government entity or whatever at each level, all they talk about is how are these programs, how are these things going to be funded. That's the main reason why, we have Congress, because, they pass a lot of bills of going off of understanding how, money is allotted from all the taxes that everybody in the United States, we receive. So at that macro, that, big umbrella that we're trying to, pretty much bring the Ainga style or Ainga, our way of life and try to implement it on a bigger spectrum, I would say it's very difficult. I would say it's very hard because at the end of the day, the dollar sign or whatever monetary value there is comes into play. There's two types of mental thought process. You have the subjective side and the objective side. A lot of the subjective folks will think, oh, do it for the good cause. But then the objective side of like, well, how much is going to cost for me to put in? I mean, even at the micro level right now, a lot of falavilaves that happen in our culture back home and, here in the States, everything revolves around, that one, sort of a rich family member, or family that has all the money will cover all the costs for all the smaller families. I mean, it does exist, and it's we want it to happen so bad. I want it to happen so bad because at the root core of it is love. We want to love everybody, take care of everybody, but it's so hard, man, so hard.
Yeah, and the thing is like, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be that want to care for everyone. But applying that on a global level, it's like, look, what is, again, I've said this before, it's like, what is money? Money is just a representation of the labor you've done. In the old days, if you were a corn farmer, your currency was the corn that you brought to the market. See what I can trade for this, or that. We get the other goods that I want. But then we decided to make this paper represent your your labor. So now it's like I have this much paper's worth of corn. Corn was like the value that my paper was based on. So instead of having to see who specifically wanted corn, we just started trading this paper as a representation of our labor and our goods. And that's the problem with, like, it's like, look, I want to help everybody, but this just doesn't exist. If we go back to the corn thing, it's like, look, I want everyone to not go hungry. I want everyone to be fed. So I just start giving away all my corn. Well, then I run out of corn, and my own family is now hungry as well. And it's like, then, and the people you gave corn to, now they ran out, and now everybody's just hungry down the line. It's like, you can, it's a noble thing to want to provide for others and take care of others. But if we do it assuming that money comes out of nowhere, that it's not based on anything, then we get to the point where we will bankrupt ourselves and bankrupt the world. And that's why it's like, I think on a local or on a family level, this is an effective thing because we're helping out our immediate family. But once you start going up to like local level, state level, federal level, I don't think it's a good policy to go by because we'll just end up bankrupting everything. And don't be wrong, I'm not even proposing this talking about like that we're not already doing that. Like, obviously our dollar is based on almost nothing today, and we really skewed that to its extreme in 2020 when we shut down all industry except for certain big companies. They were the only ones who are allowed to operate. Everyone else, here's your stipend check. We printed money based on no gold standard, no labor, no goods. It was just, here's free money. It's based on nothing. And we kind of killed our dollar. And so I'm not under the illusion that the other side is operating better. I just feel like the aiga approach to this would just be like maximizing that.
I guess. I mean, if we really look at it, like us paying taxes right now is kind of going into like this big pot. I think that kind of resembles of how the Ainga and the way of life, the Samoa is being played out in a bigger level. But then this is just my train of thought, and you guys tell me if I'm wrong. But our tax dollars is going, into this big fund, right? And then what enlightened me about this current presidency right now, with Trump coming in and then doing this whole audit thing, it just comes to realization that there's a lot of money that is wasted, and there's a lot of fraud going on. And hearing the numbers of the money that's going everywhere, I think, in a sense, us as the United States government, or the United States, the people of the United States, are paying, on a global level. Prior to Trump coming in office, and we finding out that this is what's been going on for like 20, 30 years. So I think in that sense, like, and then you have people now realizing, oh, why are we paying for this, condoms, in Saudi Arabia and all these other stuff. So that's what I'm saying. Like, if we want to implement it, I think it's already being implemented. But once people find out where the money is going to, it cracks that case, and it breaks into pieces. So that's just my thoughts.
I kind of want to modify the question a little and kind of focus it on the military. Do you guys think it'll kind of improve the camaraderie, the relationships, and that unit in the military?
I believe so. I believe 100%, because there's no I in teamwork. Honestly, and that's where our culture and our way of life is. We tend to team up, arms to arms together when we have falabalaves, we have certain family issues. I believe as a complex family, we come together, and we just try to at least help out each other in that time of need, so to speak. So try to bring it to the military side. I think it's already established, it's already existing, and it'll actually increase morale. The more their morale increases, the more troops they want to partake in certain events, and the more for them to actually like really get down to it and want to do and want to take pride in what their work is. So I think it'll definitely help out in the military sense and concept.
Well, I mean, and you kind of already said it right there. It's like, in a way, the military already does that, you know. Now, I'm coming at everything, I'm down crying it because coming at it from a financial level. But this whole idea of like everybody is our family, that's kind of a thing that I try to do anyways. It's like, just on a religious level, everybody, that's my brother, that's my sister. I want people to be taken care of. I don't want suffering in the world. In the case of the military, you hear it all the time. This is your family, you know. Like, guys leave the military. They don't. If you're really close to someone in the military, that's my brother. Brothers in arms. Like, like we already talk to each other like we're a family. Then you got the officers or cadets and stuff. That's the family that you pick on.
Now we've talked about implementing aiga globally, but let's focus on a much more relatable topic. How can we preserve Samoan traditions in a modern world? How can Samoans maintain cultural practices such as traditional tattooing, language, village system, while embracing modernity?
Yeah, I'll tackle that question head on. It just comes down to continuing education from the current practitioners of our culture, the current oratory, whatever the how you say that word, orators in our culture. Maybe it are matais, but when it really comes down to our history is a oral history, so it's been passed down from generations to generations, and it survived. And I think I would say about 500 or 1,000 years. And I don't, my history may be wrong, but we probably existed for that long. You guys could, not you guys could fact check me on that, but but coming to the modern day, with the influence of Western influence, I think it'll still be intact if we continue the education in on a micro level, starting with the family, because at the end of the day, the family in Samoa, in back in the islands, here in the States too, because majority of us here in the States, we came from the motherland, and we still hold roots to a lot of the upbringing and the culture and stuff that we learned from back home. Just the simple stuff as, saying too low, excuse me, all your simple mannerisms, being respectful to your elders. There's a lot that goes into it, but the specific nuances, like learning how to speak the chiefly way, learning how to, and this is the key word, is learn. Like, I could actually, somebody could teach us and we can learn, and but implementing it in the modern world will be kind of difficult, because you're going to be saying all these chiefly words to a bunch of folks that really don't understand, and they can't really be able, they aren't able to like fact check you on your matai way of speaking. So, which is, it comes down to, like I said, education, and that's how we're going to survive in this modern age, is continuous education, in our culture.
Yeah, education is definitely a huge factor, and one thing that we also rely on is pride. Our people is very prideful when it comes to showing our culture, representing the teams, the people who represent our country. Also, our people are the probably one of the only ones who wear cultural attire, like t-shirts with like Samoan Polynesian designs, like, and everyone's just wearing normal clothes, and we're the only people who wear something that's cultural just to represent us. and that's very very important, is having that pride. I'm sure there are other races and people who are prideful of who they are as a people, but us Polynesians, Pacific Islanders, and us Samoans, we have that pride, and that with that pride it continues our practices. Here in Utah, I know it's done a lot on the islands, but here in the United States, we're having all these pageants. We have the workshops, we have all these performers who go out and perform for events and stuff. So that's another way that we can keep our culture alive and living through the modern times.
Now, you guys both hit the nail on the head with the education, but my only 2 cents I would add is maintain your pride in your history. Now I'm over here being Afakasi. I try to do my due diligence to both sides. I don't think it's fair that I pick and choose which heritage is me, because it's only because of ancestors on both sides that I exist today. And I don't want to disrespect my family on either side. Now, having pride in my Polynesian side is what assures that I do my due diligence to get the education. Why would you get an education in something that you had no passion behind? I saw this thing a long time ago. I don't know how true it is. There's this guy. What was his name? He's a martial arts instructor from America. So, something Ramsey, I think. Anyways, like he's an American. I think he's from Idaho originally, but he learned, and he was a lifelong martial artist. He ended up moving, and he currently lives in Shanghai, China, and he teaches martial arts there. And he said one of the things he was surprised by when he moved to China is that when it comes to martial arts, and even specifically Chinese martial arts, it's not a thing that young people are interested in. That they're like, you have more enthusiasm from older generations. They do Tai Chi in the park and things like that. But as far as younger people, they want to get more into computers and sciences and like modern world stuff. And so because of that, if not for these big enthusiasts that are passionate about the martial arts, it's one of those things that could actually get lost in the future. And that's part of their culture. That's part of their heritage. But the interest in it is just kind of, in the modern generations, kind of died down outside of things and movies and stuff. And so when I apply that to Polynesian heritage, it's like, at least rear some pride in your children as we expand out, because I think it's overall a good thing to integrate into the global family, but also do your diligence to your ancestors by not forgetting them and what they passed on to you. Don't let that be just a footnote in history, And so I'm not, and I'm slacking on this. I still need to learn my language. I still need to, there's a lot I don't know. But, in the last episode when we were talking about Faikava, I expressed that to Michael. It's like, by gathering around the bowl, I'm getting more of an enriched experience with people, like sharing parts of the culture that I didn't hear before. And so little things like that bond us. So like, have pride in who you are, like, strive to be like, reach out to that local Polynesian community. And that's not to say ostracize anyone who's not Polynesian, but in an attempt to do your due diligence to the ancestors, like, make contact with your fellow Polynesians as you go forward.
I just want to add to it. I think the other biggest aspect that I think we are forgetting to see is that back in the islands, religion is a big factor in the reason why we're still continuing the culture and the way of life, for us. And it's the reason why I think it'll still be intact for another millennia, and the reason why is because the influence of religion, so to say, the church, in the different facets of Samoan culture, it's weaved into our way of life back home, because it goes hand in hand, just like how religion It's not like here in the States where religion and government is totally separate. Back home, religion and government is coexist. Like everything in government is influenced by, religion and the church, and everything in families and way of like the church is ingrained in every fiber of the Samoan culture. And I think as long as the church exists back home, as long as the religion, Protestant, Catholic, still exists back home, I think our way of life, our culture will still exist because a lot of the practices of old Samoa is still being practiced in the church today. And that's why I think it comes down to it too. Like practice makes perfect. For us here in the States, it's very difficult to really try to grasp at the culture, and because we're at every facet of here in the United States there's different cultures. We have the American way of life, which is heavily influenced the way we think, the way we act here in the States. Back home, there's 90% is Samoan, so the way we act is how everybody acts back home. Follow all of respect is very key back home, and coming here to the States, that was kind of a culture shock when I saw a guy in back in boot camp, just yell "F you" to, one of our instructors. And I was like, that's a big no no. You're going to get your ass whooped, So, yeah, so which happened. I think that's one of the key factors is just that level exists back home, and reason why we'll still see the Fasa more within another millennia. So, guys, so now that we discussed our topics, we've kind of, talked about the men versus the gorilla. My question for you guys is, say you were just for one day, and you were given the honorary title of the elite, the matai or the chief of your family, and you were tasked with running from A to Z. How would you go about running, say, a funeral? And you were the not so the different levels, right? The elite, for our military folks is like the battalion commander, all right, and then you have your paramount chiefs, and then you have your high talking chiefs, or tulafales. So tulafales are in the commander level, the company level. The elite is the battalion level. So you are the battalion level chief, so to speak. So how would you run from A to Z, running a funeral, for one day? How would you guys do it in the Samoan culture context?
Well, first off, I'm gonna put out a disclaimer to our audience. Please don't attack us if we get the ranking structure wrong. But if I was the top dog, the top dog, that's a very difficult question. But I guess you kind of have to handle it the way you do with your family. If you are like planning a family reunion, or you're in charge of planning an event, right? I have no idea how I would run things. But first, I would sort out the strengths and the weaknesses of my group, right? Find out who can cook the best povi masima, the best, fai the best, you know, who can actually do a umu versus those who cannot do a umu. You just have to sort the jobs. Make sure you have your orders. Those who can actually speak that big, high language that most of us don't speak or learn nowadays. And after you sort out the strengths of everyone, then you assign, delegate what jobs they do. Since this is a funeral, now you have to lean on the money side of things, right? You have to find out how many people are under your branch, how many people fall under you. So I'll start off with a low amount, 100 from every person. If you don't have a job, $5, at least $5. From every person who doesn't have a job, because they're basically, milking their family members who have jobs. But that's how I'll do it is gather a small amount, get that pot, to pay for the funeral. I won't do any of that, kaingasua, you know, do all that stuff. I'll just do a very simple funeral. The money is given to the family. No, only one whaiwhiau, only one pastor. I do not need a whole village pastor. If any of the other, because I know everyone wants to respect the church leaders, but I'll only send
Talangi
one
wedding,
request.
talangi
Yeah,
funeral.
so it'll be very very simple, no headaches, and
Well, the
if
other
we
ones
can,
can show up, but only one's getting paid.
yeah, and if we can't raise that money, man, we want to do some plate sales. Some plate sales. I bet we can do a plate sale within a week to raise the money that we need.
So for me, I've got to, look, I'm coming in not steeped in the culture as much as I wish I was, and so if it did fall to me, all I can do is default to what experience I do have. And so on the military side of things, I've always tried to run it where, be a humble leader, admit your faults. Because how can I get help with something I'm not willing to admit is a weakness? And so, look, I'm going to have to get counselors to be like, look, this is me. Like, basically, it falls to me to make the final decision. But who is going to advise me on the cultural proceedings with this? So I need to identify who could. I'll touch base with family on the islands, family that are knowledgeable on these things. Second thing I do is I'm going to make a group chat. Like, I'm going to get a representative from each family, put them in a group chat, and so I can converse. Here's the updates, so that you're not just waiting for me to put it all out for the whole group, yeah, for the whole like family. I will. It's like, so now we're going to the military thing with the battalion commander and whatnot. Basically, I'm looking at it more. I've always just been I'm an E6 man, so I'm looking at it like I'm the platoon sergeant. I need to talk to the squad leaders. Like, y'all put this out to your team leaders, and they disseminate it to their Joes. And so basically, I'm going to talk to my squad leaders. Every family, it's like, hey, Fungas, Lilos, all of you, like, you need, like, here's your family rep, and let me I will gather info from them, and I will disseminate info through them. And so, but that's what I got to default to, man. It's like, but I want to, like I said, touch base with somebody who can advise me. No, we need to have this. We need to have that. We need to have this. And then I will just like, draw it all out. So that way I can be like, okay, this is what we need. Now let's figure out the costs. And then I put out, hey, we need X amount from every family on this. And if I'm in financial, if I'm financially well off enough, if my estimate is off, I will put that cost on myself. It'll come out of my pocket, because I don't want to do this back and forth. Hey, it costs more. I need more money. So I'll try to get the best estimate I can, put it out, and whatever I'm wrong on falls on me.
I don't think that would work with married folks if you try to put it on yourself, because your wives would be,
See,
talking
that's
at your.
why I'm a step ahead. I don't know. That's not a factor, baby.
Oh, man, hey, both great answers, guys. There's no wrong or right answer. For me, man, it's simple, man. I'm an elite. I'm up there at that battalion level. So what I do, it's just what I was always did when I was in, making my lower level folks, shine. So what I would do is just delegate. That's all I do, just delegate, just like what Spencer was saying, delegate it, by that point, that one day I get honorary and a lead, by that point, all my leadership level is already established. I already got my Tula Fale, already got my, lower chiefs. They already know what to do. All I got to say is tell me what to do, because most of the times elites are they stay all the way behind and let everything, behind the curtains, and everything else just happen, and they just show up on the last day and, hey, I'm here, I'm the big rep of the family. So that's how I look at it, and that's how, it's been going on, so hey, just delegate it, whatever they decide to do. And if they say, hey, this family and this family, this is amount that we want the, I'll just say, okay, if you guys feel you guys are the ones that are dealing with the families, so if you guys say this is the amount that, all the families can afford, we'll go with it. If they say $1,000 and I say, well, I know the bigger picture of the company level, the battalion level, and not a lot of those families in that level are able to, then, they get struck down and send them back and let them figure it out, So not so a dictatorship type style, but, I just want to lay back and let my leadership, that's already been established, take care of everything for me. Make my life easy, So
I
that's
think I
why.
think you took the easy answer.
I
I
didn't
thought
know
we
it
were
takes
just
no
getting
easy
thrown in.
level, man.
Yeah, I thought we were just getting thrown into the position, not being established already.
No, now. Here's one thing. Even if I'm only I'm only in that role for a day, before that day's over, now that I get everything rolling, I'm also gonna reach out and like start setting it up to get my pay. So I'm like, hey, I had that role. It was one day, but I did it. So,
Exactly, man. All right, ladies and gentlemen, those are our thoughts for the evening. From us three knuckle Fiapoco guys, different parts of the states, talking about back home, our way of life and our culture, and hopefully something that we said out of our mouths resonate with any of you listeners. If you guys have any gripes or complaints whatsoever, please hit us up on the comments. Let us know. And, we have a lot of topics, but we want to hear from you guys. What do you guys want to hear from us speak on? It could be anything, anything that your heart desires. We'll put it on our list of topics that we'll talk about, and we'll put it on on our podcast, and we'll talk about it. But other than that, it's been a pleasure. I hope everything that you've heard today is sweet to your ears and to your liking. From our beautiful faces here at Behind the Lava Lava, we want to say good night and take care until the next time. I'm out.
Working on my interests, it's who I am. I'm trying to make these digits look like EINs. When the help ain't free, you all help me. Salute to folks who turn their names to LLCs. The wealth is in itself to help a non-profit. To be better women or better men, whether business by veterans or common folks with a dream. We're all born with the same strength. We tread waters that were untouched. Let's be on the same wavelength. Behind the lava, front of our eyes. Let our legacy live off it when we're up in the sky. All signs point to us to help someone make a difference. With God as my witness, cause talk business.